Alright, so today we're going to be putting together what we've done with limits so far, as well as what we did yesterday or earlier today, with finding our vertical and horizontal asymptotes. And all of this is going to be put together in helping us graph these kind of equations. So these first two are from 10.4, and we'll do a couple more from 10.4 in class. But we're going to pretty much start the same way we did our assignment last time, where we start with our domain. So we look to see what values of x will never be able to occur. And to do that, we look at our denominator. X cannot equal 3 or negative 3. So we would say negative infinity to negative 3 in union with negative 3 to 3 in union with 3 to infinity. For vertical asymptotes, we try to simplify first and then do the same thing we did with domain, set the denominator equal to 0. So in looking at our fraction, which is already factored for us, nothing cancels. So the same 3 and negative 3 that we got for domain will become our vertical asymptotes. So I'm just going to come over to my graph right now and sketch those on here so that I have them. So my vertical asymptotes. Now my horizontal asymptote, we're going to take the limit as this whole expression approaches 0. So the limit, sorry, not 0, as it approaches infinity, of x plus 2 over x squared minus 9 when you multiply it back out. So the only reason I'm really multiplying this back out is to show you that this is bottom heavy. So when we have a bottom heavy expression, our limit is 0. So do you have to multiply it back out to read the degree? No. You could also just go, you'll have x times x, which is x squared, or add the degrees here, 1 and 1 to get 2. But I just multiplied it out to show you. So our horizontal asymptote's at y equals 0. So I'm just going to go ahead and try to sketch this right over my x-axis so you can see my horizontal asymptote. Now what's helpful is also to find the x and the y intercepts. Okay, so these ones we haven't really done in a while. So for the y-intercept, just a reminder, the x-intercept, you set y equal to 0 and solve for x, which, let's see, 0 equals x plus 2. Wait, we did just do this not that long ago. Subtract 2, so x equals negative 2 is our x-intercept. So I'm going to come over here to negative 2, label it. And then I also have, for my y-intercept, we set x equal to 0. So 0 plus 2 over 0 plus 3 times 0 minus 3. That'll give us, let's see, 2 over negative 9. So 0 comma negative 2 ninths. So that's going to be somewhere over here. And these are all just estimates. That's why we're going to make sure we label them. So based on the information I have, there's one new thing that we haven't really gone over, but it has to do with the multiplicity of your asymptotes. So if I come back up to my equation, I got asymptotes at negative 3 and 3. Both of these have a multiplicity of 1. When the multiplicity is odd, so here I had an odd multiplicity for that asymptote and an odd multiplicity for this one. That means my end behaviors have to go in opposite directions at that asymptote. If it was even, they'd go in the same direction at the asymptote. So kind of like how even degrees, they went in the same direction at the ends. Even asymptotes go in the same direction at the asymptote. Odd degree went in opposite, odd asymptotes go in opposite directions. So at the moment, we really just need to figure out one of these pieces to be able to sketch the rest. So usually what I do from here is I would pick a point, maybe like really close to 3, and try to estimate what might be happening. Because what I don't know is, does my graph start high, cross, and go low? Or does it cross, go high? Well, it can't really cross again, so we're only going to cross once. But I need to figure that out. So if we were to plug in, let's say, negative 2.5. So if I go to my calculator and I plug in negative 2.5 for x, so I'm just going to do this right here. Negative 2.5 plus 2, I get negative 1/2. We're going to divide that by, negative 2.5 plus 3 times negative 2.5 minus 3. And we get about 0.18, which tells me that it's above my x-axis. And so what that tells me is that I'm going to be starting up here, crossing, and then going towards the opposite asymptote. So by plugging in negative 2.5, it just told me if I was starting above or below. Okay, that's all I was trying to figure out, is where do I start from left to right. So then, knowing that this is odd, this end behavior has to go this way. So my graph for that section will look something like that. Knowing that this one was odd, if this is going down, then this end behavior has to go up. And then I just go around my asymptotes from there. So one thing I did want to clarify on this one in particular, because this question comes up, isn't 0 an asymptote? Well, yeah, it is. But asymptotes tell us, the horizontal asymptotes tell us the end behavior, which means it can still cross in the middle, just at the ends it's going to 0. So keep that in mind, that it is okay that we still have an x-intercept. What the asymptote is telling us, or the horizontal asymptote is telling us, is what's happening as we go to negative infinity. We're going to approach 0, and same with infinity, we're going to approach 0. Okay, so this was just one problem, and it's taking all of those pieces and putting it together. Okay, so like I said, we're going to do some of these in class, just because it is a little bit of a process since we're putting all these pieces together. So if you have questions about any particular part, whether it be finding the information or testing how to draw the graph itself, please come in with that. We are going to do one more here though before we call it a night, for 10-4 at least. So here again we have a rational expression, which we're going to find those same 5 things. So if we start with our domain, we take the denominator, set it equal to 0, and solve, and we get negative 1. So I would say negative infinity to negative 1 in union with negative 1 to infinity for our domain. Simplify now if you can. If you can't, then you can go ahead and do your vertical asymptote. So here it would be at x equals negative 1. So I'm going to go ahead and go to negative 1 and sketch my asymptote. The horizontal is your limit as you go to infinity of 3 over x plus 1. So again, this one is bottom heavy. So bottom heavy means our limit is 0. So we're going to have y equals 0 as our limit. Or sorry, as our horizontal asymptote. So I'm going to kind of sketch that right over my axis. Then we have our x-intercepts. So if I set y equal to 0, I'll get 3 over x plus 1, multiply both sides by x plus 1, I get 0 equals 3. So I don't have any letters left, which means there are no x-intercepts. So this horizontal asymptote is a true horizontal asymptote, meaning it's never going to touch the x-axis. Okay, then we have our y-intercept. So the y-intercept is where we're going to set x equal to 0. So 3 over 0 plus 1, that'll give us 3. So 0 comma 3. And now it's time to sketch, actually figure out how it goes. So again, I go to my multiplicity at my vertical asymptote. This had an exponent of 1, meaning this is an odd multiplicity. So I know my end behaviors have to be going in opposite directions. Since I know I can't cross this line, but I have to cross the 3, I know that this one has to be up here. And that means, because of end behavior having to be opposite, that the other half of my graph goes in the bottom. So with these, again, there's a lot of mental math involved. There's not a whole lot of work. Our work is mostly applying what we know about domain and range, as well as how we find our vertical asymptotes, intercepts, and horizontal asymptotes. Okay, so in class we're going to do 2 more. We're going to do some that are even, so I'll show you what those look like, as well as some that have that do simplify and what that does to the graph, because that does create holes in our graph where we have to put open circles. So the other half of your homework tonight is to watch 11.5, where we're actually going to look at the types of graphs that are top heavy as opposed to bottom heavy. Like these two were with their limits. These were both bottom heavy, so we got 0. What happens when we have a top heavy and the horizontal asymptote is none? So that's what we're going to look at in 10.5. So go ahead and make sure you watch that before class tomorrow.